Nothing compares to the chill that runs down your spine while listening to a strange mystery, especially if you're hearing it for the first time. Hopefully, these cases fill you with that invigorating sense of thrill, considering that they're fairly unpopular and will be new to your ears. Number 5. Pascagoula, Mississippi was at the center of the war in June of 1942, when the town began to hustle and bustle as warships were beginning to be manufactured at the docks. This brought new citizens from different backgrounds and gave the small town a taste of the big city. While working hard to help the US win the war, people were haunted by more than depressing goodbyes. The mystery story of the Phantom Barber began to spread throughout town after a few isolated incidents occurred. The first reported case happened late at night, and the victims were 2 young girls with beautiful long blonde hair. The so-called Phantom snuck in through a window and chopped off a significant amount of hair from both girls' heads. Somehow, he was gentle and stealthy enough to flee the scene in silence, taking his tools and the blonde bundles with him. This event was followed by a similar report in the area, in which another young set of women woke up with huge clumps and sections of hair missing. The media caught wind of the scary story and deemed the criminal the Phantom Barber of Pascagoula in the headlines. After this, cases seemed to arise. Perhaps the barber got a kick out of his 15 minutes of fame, and during this time, the army was enforcing local curfews and citizens had to have their lights off before a certain time, likely around 9 p.m. So it seemed strange that the Phantom wasn't caught by military men patrolling the streets at night. A clue finally came along when the barber got a little messy one night. He left his shoe print on a bed after stepping in wet sand. This seemed like a break in the case, and a reward of $300 was used for anyone withholding information. Women in the town slept with one eye open, overcome with fear. While it may seem like a harmless crime, it's still terrifying to know that a grown man could sneak into your room and violate you in such a way. Plus, this Phantom's crimes grew worse in nature. One night, he snuck into the home of an elderly couple, and instead of cutting their hair, he attacked them. After this, the community was desperate to seek justice, and an arrest was made. William Dolan, a local scientist, was arrested after a clump of hair was found near his home. However, this was the only evidence provided, and it simply could have been placed there by the true Phantom. Charges failed to be filed, but the barber's streak did finally stop. Rumors and reports began to paint the barber as a supernatural being, which in their eyes was the only way to explain such impressive stealth. Number 4. This case has received media attention on the shows Unsolved Mysteries and Paranormal Witness, yet it's still considered a rather unpopular tale that many people have never heard. Which is strange considering the baffling circumstances and witness accounts of the unfolding events. Don Decker was an average man serving time in prison when his life randomly spiraled out of control in February of 1983. Don's grandfather had just passed away, and he was allowed to leave prison to attend the services in Pennsylvania. The following details of the event come from Don's own personal retelling of events, as well as details provided by witnesses and official legal records. While washing his hands one evening, Don started to feel lightheaded. He claimed that he was dazed, as though in some kind of a trance that he couldn't control. As a result, he passed out and fell to the floor. The homeowner, Bob Kiefer, asked John about the events a short moment later after Don came to and returned downstairs. He reported seeing a man wearing a crown before he completely fell out. This small event was the first stone thrown in what would become an epic tale of horror and mystery. According to Bob, after Don shared his experience, the walls of the home began leaking. The flow was small at first, like condensation rolling down a surface, but eventually the flow became concerning. As the water posed a threat to the foundation of the home, Bob contacted a professional to check the pipes. To their surprise, they found that the leaks were occurring on the side of the house that did not hold any pipes. During this confusing event, the water flow got stronger, and according to Bob, it began leaking upwards from the floor, defying gravity and all logic. In the midst of this ordeal, Bob noticed that Dawn was staring blankly in the corner, staring forward, completely zoned out and unresponsive. Afraid and unsure of what to do, Bob called the local police. When officers arrived, it's unclear exactly what went down because an official report was never filed after the first visit. Bob reported that Dawn was levitating around the house as deep scratches from an unknown source randomly appeared around his body. The officers that arrived were Officer John Bowen and Richard Wolbert. According to reports that were discussed much later, Bowen believed that what they were witnessing could only be explained as a demonic possession of sorts. Meanwhile, Wolbert dismissed the concept entirely and ordered that they leave the residence. Apparently, throughout the rest of the night, Bob had to help Dawn through a shocking and baffling trauma that played out until sunrise. After word of the alleged paranormal events made their way around the precinct, 2 officers rebelled against Wolbert and took it upon themselves to visit the residence a second time. Those officers, William Davies and John Rundle, reported what they saw as horrifying and, in fact, paranormal. They described details similar to what happened the night before, and also shared a story of witnessing Dawn's skin burn and sizzle when a gold cross was pressed against him. Despite the clear danger, the officers felt there was nothing they could do more to help this man. So instead of treatment being offered, Dawn was loaded up and transported back to prison. While at the station waiting to be moved, the water antics seemed to continue, and a plumber was even called. However, officers reported that he left immediately after making eye contact with Dawn in his cell. After he arrived back to his home cell in prison, a local priest was finally called in to address the situation, and a successful exorcism was finally conducted, removing the possible demon from Don Becker's body, allowing him to snap back to his normal state. Number 3. Around Halloween 1939, the small town of Provincetown, Massachusetts, was threatened by the eerie presence of a supernatural being apparently haunting their town. The creature, which many now refer to as the Black Flash of Provincetown, was the center of attention for many months. The first alleged sighting of the being was reported by a group of children walking home from school one day. The Black Flash jumped out of the bushes to startle the group, which he succeeded in doing. After arriving home, the children were eager to tell their parents, some in shock, but mostly in fear. The description provided by the witnesses described the Black Flash as being almost human-like, as in he had the general shape of a human, but certain features made him look freakish. They claimed he was unnaturally tall and faster than any vehicle. His skin was pitch black from head to toe, making his face look like a misshapen black hole. He had pointed ears and silver eyes that reflected in a piercing manner. The kids in this group also reported that the figure had a spine-chilling evil laugh that he screeched out after scaring them. After this, more reports were made and rumors began to fly, leaving behind a messy collection of published reports and oral stories passed down for generations. A woman named Marie Costa later reported seeing the same creature near the town hall in October. She sprinted to a coffee shop where she sought safety and sent a group of men to bring down the demon. Of course, the Black Flash was never found, and Marie's story wasn't taken seriously, although reports later suggested that she was in a genuine state of horror. More reports started filing in that year, almost daily. Oddly enough, it seemed that the Black Flash mostly attacked during the day instead of at night, as you'd likely expect. The town lived in fear for countless months. Local authorities wrote it off as a hoax, but they were never able to apprehend the jokester. Number 2. Although you may have never heard of the gyra ghost, it's a famous case in New South Wales, Australia, and is even considered one of the country's biggest unsolved mysteries in paranormal history. The gyra ghost is a terrifying case from 1921, involving a strong poltergeist presence that seemed to target a young girl in the Bowen family. Minnie Bowen was 12 years old when the nightmare started, which suggests that she was the perfect age to be more clearly connected to the spirit world than the average adult, a common theory in paranormal sciences. It all began on April 8, 1921, when the events were suddenly triggered, although it's unclear by what. Loud and seemingly violent thumping rang throughout the house. The noise carried on for several minutes before banging sounds joined the choir. The terror continued without rest and sent the Bowens into a state of panic, unaware of what kind of attack they were under. The reports also claimed that stones rained down from the sky and struck the roof of their home for another few minutes during the madness. Eventually, the action stopped just as suddenly as it had started. Still unsure of what exactly had happened to them, the family tried to carry on with their normal lives. Of course, they failed to do so because the torment returned and happened almost every single night following the first set. Local law enforcement got involved and concluded that there was no way the family was responsible for the events or part of a hoax. Minnie Bowen did at one point admit to knocking on the walls a few times, but her confession didn't explain anything because the chaos pouring down on the family was much more than a young girl would be capable of. Officers surrounded the house for several weeks at a time and were still unable to find a logical explanation or solution. Through a series of observations, it seemed as though Minnie was the center of the action. She was moved out of the home and sent to live with her grandmother. While the activity finally stopped at the Bowen household, it seemed to follow Minnie, and the noises occurred at her new home as well. Some rumors from time to time reported that Minnie was being haunted by her half-sister, who'd passed away a few months before the events went down. She apparently passed away at a very young age and left her 18-month-old infant in the care of Minnie and her parents. She was described as a source of stress on the young girl. Some paranormal experts believe that Minnie may have held a strong connection to the spirit world and attracted her sister's tortured soul. Eventually, the torment stopped completely, and Minnie went on to live a normal life and even started her own family. Number 1. 77-year-old Minnie Winston and her 79-year-old husband, William, experienced a short period of very strange events in 1987. The couple's cozy little home in Atlanta, Georgia, was a place that held many memories and happy years for them. Sadly, the location turned into something quite unsettling when Minnie found blood splatters randomly placed throughout her home on September 8, 1987. Minnie noticed the first spill on her bathroom floor. Confused and horrified, she grabbed her husband for questioning, assuming he may have accidentally harmed himself while shaving. William denied that he was the source of the spill, which checked out after Minnie found no wounds or drops on his person. She checked herself, of course, and determined that she wasn't the source either. The confusion wasn't over yet, though. The couple went on to find several more spills and splatters throughout their home. The puddles left behind were relatively small, but the sheer fact that they didn't know where it was coming from was quite concerning. Nearly every room in the house had at least one or two small spots of red fluid. Time passed, and each time Minnie cleaned up the area, another spill would mysteriously appear. The couple lived alone, had no visitors, and didn't own any pets. They tried to trace the spills through the walls and flooring, but found no openings or leaks that could have been excreting the fluid. Minnie and William finally called the local authorities. The first officers sent to check out the scene made the mistake of not taking the couple seriously. Unfortunately, age discrimination tainted the investigation because the officers and detectives assumed the elderly couple was simply forgetting accidents. William was on dialysis, and officers dismissed the spills as the result of tubes and needles for the patient. However, they did offer the minimal effort of getting help to have the blood tested. The The results shook Minnie and William to their core. The samples tested positive for being human blood, but they were not a match for the couple. In fact, the samples weren't even the same type as Minnie and William. Still, the case was deemed unsolvable by police, and the story ends there. It's unknown what happened in the years that followed. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knots, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.